First and now is the official BC Lions podcast. Matt Baker and Nick Kowalski for the first time in the post-free agent market opening era in 2024. Bear with me, that was a mouthful, but I hope that makes sense. We have some new additions, couple subtractions to talk about. That's the nature of the business, but Nicky, you look tired. You recovered from your Vegas excursion? You look like you're still catching up on sleep, I gotta say. But that's okay. It's all worth it.
Look at you for watching her now. You're all in a suit. That I didn't get the memo, I guess, today. I'm in my classic BC Lions uniform. But yeah, you with the suit. You got the little BC Lions pin on you.
For those watching this podcast, you can sort of zoom in. Maybe you screenshot this.
But I'm a little exhausted from Vegas.
Well, as for my attire, it's Thursday. Why not?
That's the reason?
Yeah, sure.
That's what we're going to go with? I heard you were presenting in front of thousands of kids earlier. That's what I heard.
Thousands. Yeah, maybe a few patched in on
police
Zoom
escort,
that
everything.
Yeah. Yes, was fortunate and honored to speak at a career day, Fraser Heights Secondary, not too far from our facility here. So yeah, kind of full circle for me. I remember being in grade 11, grade 12, and they had a member of the sports broadcasting fraternity at that time come in and speak. So it's kind of weird to fast forward 25 years later, however long it's been. And always glad to talk to the youth, our next generation, and share my experiences about this football club and my path. And yeah, I figured might as well put something nice on. None of this sideline merchandise stuff that I normally wear in the office.
So we got all these little kids running home tonight and saying, when I grow up, I want to be Matt Baker. That's how it's going to go?
It's funny. I had major flashbacks because I was in the counselor's office waiting this was done over the lunch hour at the school. And it went on the announcements. For those interested in today's career presentation, Matt Baker with the BC Lions is going to be in the library. And my first thought was, wow, I hope people aren't expecting to see like a player or something. That was my first thought.
Yeah, VA's rolling through.
And two, that would have been a lot more entertaining. And two, I had PTSD flashbacks of hearing my name on the announcements at school. Like if I had if I had an overdue library book, or if I was needed in the office for some reason. You ever get that?
Yeah, usually trouble's coming, yeah.
Just like major panic starts to set in.
Yep.
You hear the announcement monitor saying your name over the PA. Everyone in the school knows your name has been called. Remember that?
Yeah, you are bringing a little flashbacks back now, to be honest. I was a good kid in school, though, not going to lie. I was kind of a goody two-shoes.
Well, obviously.
At least growing up, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to make some calls to the Transcona School District in Manitoba.
St. Joseph the Worker, shout out, elementary school.
You went to Catholic school?
In elementary, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
St. Joseph the Worker is the name of a church in Richmond where my parents and a lot of relatives got married in. So there you go.
Awesome. We're already off the rails, 2 minutes in.
Yeah, well, you started it with the wardrobe. And anyway, Vegas, we're going to talk about it toward the end of the show.
Yeah.
I have a hunch it's going to come up and go for it or punt. But you and Moj and Whittingham did some good work. Watched a few of your interviews. Dan Marino. A guy I love is Greg Cosell.
Yep.
Just some great film breakdowns, no hot takes, no agendas like a lot of talking heads you hear. Because I heard a lot of that going into that Super Bowl, the whole, Brock Purdy game manager, all that stuff. You tuned that out. Congrats to the Chiefs, by the way. But what was the highlight?
The highlight, I would say that I'm the filmer, right? So I'm behind the camera at all times, but my job is pretty much to film whomever Moj talks to, I just got to film it. So we got some big names if you saw on Moj's social media this past week. So the highlight I'd say would be filming. I got right up in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's face. Filming there with the security escort. What you don't see is me backpedaling during that while these 6'6" security guards are giving me a stiff arm to the chest. I almost fell backwards. I don't know how I haven't done that yet. So that was a big highlight. Getting The Rock to shout out Wally Buono, giving him a happy birthday note. Media day is always a highlight for me. I never get sick of those. So that's when all the players are on the field and it's just a media swarm for an hour. We got to talk to Travis Kelce about his connection with Zach Collaros and hit some other CFL angles too. So While it was Super Bowl Vegas content, Moj does a great job of definitely working the CFL angle. So there's guys like Dre Greenlaw, Johnny Holland, Tim Terry. These are like former Ticats connections, BC Lions connections. So a lot of fun stuff in Vegas. But yeah, we will talk a little more about it and go for it or punt, because I have some opinions on Vegas now that I'm no longer a rookie there.
Well, I'm going next month, like we've talked about. It'll be my 8th time, I think.
Wow.
So I think we'll save it. We'll save it. But my only question for now is, I was going to tour Allegiant Stadium. I was going to do the paid guy. Would you recommend doing that?
Yeah, it was a cool stadium. The lights were out obviously during it,
Yeah.
but it looks big. We got up to go. The media food that was provided was in the 300 section, I guess.
Right.
You'd call it. I don't even know. Upper deck, I guess.
I think
is a
I
better
might
term.
do it. Yeah.
But yeah, we went up there for a bit with Whittingham, and it was cool. One funny thing is Whittingham, and there was a lot of stairs to get there, so Whittingham and I took the stairs, and Moj got to go in the elevator to go up. And Moj told us after, he's like, "You'll never believe what I saw or ran into in the elevator. It was Bruce Buffer."
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so
he was
Moj-
announcing the thing,
Yeah,
right?
so Moj had a conversation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't there for that. I was just running up the stairs, but that would have been a good one to get too.
Would have been a super one to get.
Yeah.
You run into Ocho Cinco at all?
Yep, Moj tried tracking him down.
Yeah.
He actually, funny
Couldn't
story
remember.
about Chad Ochocinco. The first thing Moj told me this, I wasn't there for it, but the first thing he told Moj was when Moj drops BC Lions, Vancouver, radio station, Ochocinco goes to him, "Yeah, my guy Lucky Whitehead." And then Moj tried FaceTiming Lucky, but unfortunately wasn't available at the time. But that was Ochocinco's first thought when he heard BC Lions in CFL was Lucky Whitehead.
There you go. Current free agent, Lucky Whitehead. So, no, good for you. The content was outstanding. I made sure we got the Johnny Holland interview posted up. And so Las Vegas, I'll be there myself again in 3 weeks from now. We'll be at the Canucks and Golden Knights 3 weeks tonight on the Thursday night in Vegas. You're going to a couple Canuck games coming up tonight, I think, as am I. But we're talking football. As mentioned, we're about 48 hours and change into the free agent market opening. From a Lions perspective, I think that's all you can expect for now. Who knows? Closer to camp, if something comes up, they might look at, you never know, but the free agent market, the Lions doing what we expected, adding a couple of quarterbacks, so depth in the QB room we'll talk about. Perhaps a solid replacement for Matthew Betts, changing up the ratio. You never know with Pete Robertson. But first off, since we last recorded, a couple of key pieces have stuck around. Namely Marcus Sayles and Ben Hladek. The Lions also getting David Neville done to an extension a few days before the negotiation window period was set to open. A couple of key pieces there returning as far as veterans on that defense especially.
Yeah, when it comes to these three players too, with Sayles, Neville, and Hladek, all three I'm interested to see where exactly they fit into this 2024 roster, right? We saw Marcus Sayles play more so with Jalen Edwards-Cooper on that right side last year at halfback, but now with TJ Lee's Achilles situation, we don't know where Marcus Sayles is going to line up, whether it's going to be beside Gary in the boundary or on the left side as they did last year, whether Marcus is going to be on the field. So that's very interesting.
There's some options there
and then
for sure.
Same with
yeah.
Neville, the left guard position, I'm assuming is still up for grabs. So three key guys to get back, but three guys that I'm interested to see where they line up on day one of training camp.
And the Neville one's interesting because you remember he basically went last six games in the playoffs. He became the starter. Remember, Andrew Pearson was, I guess, demoted for lack of a better term, but he still ended up getting on when Suk Chung went down for a game or two, right?
Yep.
Was that the second game we went to Edmonton that Suk missed, I think? So both of these guys, Pearson, Neville, they're going to be called upon at some point, you think. Andrew Pearson is locked up for a couple more years as well. But David Neville, for me, is the classic case of perseverance. Remember, 2022, you kept hearing that was going to be his chance to shine, his chance to take the ball and run with it. But he ends up tearing his labrum, has surgery, misses the whole season. But then, good job rehabbing. Good job earning his way back, ends up earning another extension going into last year, and he emerges on the roster as the extra guy for the first part of the season until they made the change up there at guard. So for me, I'm hoping to see that he's even more motivated by the fact he earned his way all the way back.
For sure, and a lot of these guys, we've talked about it at length about how it's an important year being the Grey Cups here in Vancouver. But for a lot of these guys like Neville, Sales, Haladic, like they're entering right into their primes, right? Haladic's still on the younger side at only 24 years old, but Sales is now in his 4th season with BC, right? He's probably missing. He's had that feeling of winning a Grey Cup back in 2019, but that's now 5 years ago, right? So motivation, it's got to be at an all-time high.
Yeah, offensive line play going to be a big part of it. You look at these games once we get past Labor Day, October, November. Hopefully we don't have to go outside again come playoff time, but the line of scrimmage is going to be key once again, and even more key because we addressed the running back position as we sort of go in chronological order here. We were able to announce this one a week before the period opened, just under that, I think. Will Stanback, a veteran with the Montreal Alouettes, a Grey Cup champion, a 2-time 1,000-plus yard rusher in this league, granted his release by the Alouettes and the Lions officially signing him last week. So that's been kind of the number one question for a couple years now, right? Certainly since James Butler departed to the Hamilton Tiger Cats ahead of 2023. But at 29 years old, less than 3 years removed from earning an Eastern nominee for Most Outstanding Player, he would lose to Zach Collaros. This is a player with gas in his tank, and as you see, we'll direct you to bclions.com. When you're done listening to this podcast, check it out. You can see that Stanback is entering this year with a chip on his shoulder. This could be a sneaky great signing.
Well, it's what the fans wanted, right? We heard all this talk about what are they going to do at running back? What are they going to do at running back? Well, yeah, they're going to bring in a former East Division MOP at running back and Will Stanback, and a guy that's also well familiar with Vernon Adams Jr. They obviously shared the backfield in Montreal a couple years ago, and I think for us too, we saw his touchdown run. He had that 32-yard touchdown run in the Grey Cup in the first quarter. That came directly to our seats. Remember that?
Yeah.
So that right then and there, I saw, okay, this guy still has what it takes to be a top running back in this league. Obviously,
same end of the field where Phil Pott scored the winning touchdown,
right at us. So that Stanback run came right at us to that corner we were sitting in. But Stanback, he now has a ring to his name. I was listening to the Waggle on the CFL podcast with Enoch Mwamba, and he was talking about how when he talked with Stanback, you remember that iconic shot of Enoch getting emotional on the stage after 2022. Stanback told Enoch, he was like, "You didn't tell me it feels this good after winning a Grey Cup." So obviously now that they're both champions, Stanback coming here, he's going to bring that championship pedigree, and I mean, that's a great signing. It's got to be an A+ at this point, right?
Absolutely. Hey, if you can balance out the solid aerial attack we have with VA and these receivers with a stout running game, sky could be the limit. On to February 13th we go, and speaking of VA and the quarterbacks, we didn't sign one, but we got two. Rather early in the day, Dakota Prukop, 30 years old, last 2 seasons with Winnipeg. And at one point in the stands in this Grey Cup, you turned to me and said, look, they're getting 8-9 yards, the Bombers are, on every first down. So Prukop was out there, I think, 10 times.
Yep.
This is a guy that saw a lot of action in this Grey Cup, scored a short yardage touchdown for the Bombers, did so in 2022 as well when they lost to Toronto. But short yardage and depth, Dakota Prukop, Oregon Duck in 2016, he was after 3 years at Montana State. This is, as far as a number 3, quote unquote, pretty good.
Yeah, that's where you immediately think to where Prukop fits in this offense, right? And he's, like you said, he's as automatic as they come in short yardage too, which is a definitely an upgrade at the position that we had from, it's a very important part of the game. We've witnessed that last year in several games, right? And Winnipeg's definitely soaked the benefits of having Prukop as our short yardage guy. And right now, you do probably pencil him as a QB3, but the guy we're going to talk about in a second, Jake Dolagala, if he's going to be QB2, it's not just going to be given to him, right? You have to earn that spot in training camp, and there's also Chase Bryce in the mix that they still have around. So while these quarterbacks are probably slotted into certain spots right now, they're by no means cemented in at this point, right?
Just names on a depth chart. You are right. Jake Dolagala, great measurables, 6'7", 242. And we saw him a couple times, lost a game there in Saskatchewan at the end of August, and then he actually went for a career-high 409 yards against us in September. Granted, that was a game where the Lions had built a big lead and they had to chip away and come back. They pretty much had abandoned the run game, but half the season, 9 games, Jake started after injuries to Trevor Harris and Mason Fine. Solid veteran backup in a league where you need at least 2 solid quarterbacks.
Just a big dude too, like you mentioned, 6'7". He was the first quarterback whenever I'm filming through my viewfinder, right? And he's the first guy where I'm looking at him through my viewfinder and I'm like, this guy is not a normal size. He is this taller, like immensely taller than everybody else in the field. And there's that iconic, I think it was after the Labor Day Classic where he had that post-game interview with, I believe it was Britt Dort, where he's literally bending over into the frame just so he can fit in. So no problems for Jake to be seeing over any offensive line or any defenders too. So a lot of people it seemed like this is a very positive reception online too. It's for this signing too, which is also nice to have, make the fans happy and all of that. So excited to see what Jake has to bring in Kamloops.
Going back to day one, February 13th, getting ready to kind of shut things down. It's almost 5 o'clock, but then we get wind that Pete Robertson is coming, and we'll talk about him more in a minute. But Matthew Betts, congratulations, landing with the Detroit Lions. So pretty big hole there on the defensive end side of things. But 31 years old is Pete Robertson. Last 3 years with Saskatchewan, led the Riders in sacks in 2 of those 3 seasons. And you like this fact about him. Doesn't wear gloves, but this guy, this is a player who's going to bring some nastiness to this Lions defense.
And it's because he wears no gloves. That's the number one indicator. If you're watching a defensive end and he's got no gloves on, you know you're going to be in for an aggressive day. Sione Tuihema also does not wear gloves either, and you see the type of player Sione is in the field too, right? But BC, like we were second in the league in sacks last year at 55, and obviously the departure of Matthew Betts is going to hurt that. But then you would add Pete Robertson to that group, and he's someone who has kind of that similar stat line to Matthew Betts. Like Pete Robertson forced 6 fumbles too over his last 3 years in Saskatchewan too, and that's something Betts did a great job at from his defensive end spot. So I think just looking at it objectively, this is quite like a replacement for Matthew Betts now that he's departed, but. I'm happy to have him on our side too. Of course, I'm just coming to my mind right now, but the last 2 seasons, Pete Robertson has injured a BC Lions quarterback, so that's another reason why I'm happy to have him on our side and not chasing our quarterbacks any longer.
And it's funny, I talked about this. I mentioned this to Tyler Gammon, our football ops manager. 2017, Davon Coleman in Hamilton falls on Jonathan Jennings, injured his shoulder. Less than 2 years later, Davon's a BC Lion. Pete Robertson in 2022 kind of collides with Nathan Rourke. We know what happened, and now he's a BC Lion. So,
and VA too last year.
VA as well, yeah, exactly. So there you go. Glad to have this player. Plays with a bit of a nasty edge. Of course, he might have crossed the line a little bit in that Labor Day Classic against Winnipeg, but that's in the past. He owned up to that. And again, have to get nasty, have to get meaner. Matthew Betts, nasty, mean, high motor. Pete Robertson, exact same thing. Before we talk about Betts, Cianti Evans, this is a veteran experience. You can never have too much veteran all-star Grey Cup experience, Nikki. And speaking of history and speaking of John Jennings, I remember being there in Calgary in overtime in 2016, and it was Cianti Evans who recorded an end zone interception to seal a crazy overtime win for the Stampeders. It was a blown Lions lead. Wasn't too much fun. Heck of an exciting game, but he has since done great things in Hamilton, Montreal, 2-time Grey Cup champion with the Alouettes last year and the Stampeders in 2018, which was his best year as far as interceptions go with 5. Again, we're talking about this secondary and where guys might slot in. So a couple of these rookies come to camp and maybe don't impress. You have a guy like Cianti Evans in the fold. So I was happy with this one. I know you were too.
Yeah, when you told us that we're bringing in Ciante Evans, I got very excited because he's a veteran in this league, been playing in it since 2016. Also had a bit of an NFL stint in between there too, but he's someone who, like you said, he's pretty versatile, can kind of move around, play half, play corner. A really really good tackler for a DB. If you watch the little highlight tape he put out, there's several tackles that he makes pretty much at the line of scrimmage where he's blowing up plays and just making the play by himself essentially, right? So. Excited to see where he slots in. We definitely needed, with TJ Lee going down with his Achilles and Jalen Edwards-Cooper departing for Saskatchewan, definitely needed some help in the defensive backfield, and Ciante Evans is that addition.
1 year deal for Ciante, a 2-year deal for Dola Gala, and then 1 year each for Pete Robertson, Dakota Prukop, William Stanback. We didn't talk about Jake Hardy very quickly here. Veteran Canadian wide receiver, was a high draft pick, early second round with Ottawa, where Rick Campbell, of course, was in 2015. It's a guy who can contribute on special teams. So you look at a guy like Daniel Peterman, no longer with the team, free agent, and a natural progression, a natural replacement here for Jake Hardy, who spent last year as well with Montreal.
Yeah, and when I think of Hardy, never met him personally, but he did follow me back on Instagram, so thank you, Jake, for the follow. But
me too, by the way.
When we were in Kamloops in the summer with Keenan LaFrance and Sean White filming the Tourism with Kamloops series, Keenan and Sean started talking about some of their past CFL teammates, and Keenan brought up Jake Hardy and how he's such a good, kind of guy in the locker room and all that, and just a lot of fun to hang out with. And then when I think his Instagram confirmed it, because I was scrolling through some of his posts the other day, and there's him playing hockey, there's him playing golf, and of course he's obviously a pro football receiver. So he's a sports guy, and seems like he's going to fit in really well in this locker room too. And like you said, can contribute in several aspects.
It's funny, helping the graphics department prepare these announcements and looking for some Canadian Press or CFL.ca photos. One of the first photos when I look up for Jake Hardy, it's the 2016 Grey Cup celebration. It's him and Tanner Dahl just yelling and going crazy right when that game ended. So Tanner, of course, a good buddy of ours, and another example.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Keenan LaFrance is, the football world is small.
That's a great photo.
Yeah, he's got the long hair and everything. Does Tanner, of course.
Nathan Dennett, shout out you for that photo.
That was a crazy result, by the way. Ottawa taking down Calgary that year.
It's one of my favorite Grey Cups ever.
Like, the Stampeders had lost 2 games all year, beat us pretty good in the Western Final, and then here come the Ottawa Red Blacks. 1 game, anything can happen.
The quarterback situation, the Henry Burris and Trevor Harris, the shoestring tackle on, I believe it was Andrew Buckley.
Yep.
Was the quarterback for Calgary. They
couldn't
took
punch it in.
Out. Yeah,
had to settle for overtime.
And then Ernest Jackson, game-winning touchdown.
Former BC Lion, Ernest off the fingertips, right?
Yep.
So there you go. We're looking to create more of those memories, the 111th Grey Cup. Every year we want to win it. It's just another year in that regard, but doing it at home indeed would be special. Matthew Betts was made official just moments after the market officially opened, and he was free to sign somewhere else. Bit of a surprise in the end. Kept hearing it was down to us and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I think our brass felt pretty good about it the later it got, until this Detroit Lions thing got finalized. So Matthew Betts, 1-year deal with Detroit, and we all know what he accomplished, making Canadian history with 18 sacks, most outstanding defensive player, the first Lion since Solomon Elimimian to accomplish that feat. And you put this down here in your notes, Nick. I think if you want to be an outstanding Canadian, come to BC, of course.
Back-to-back years, and Nathan Rourke winning the award in 2022, and then Matthew Betts winning the most outstanding defensive player as Canadian, right? So if you have aspirations of being that outstanding Canadian player, the BC Lions are probably the spot for you based off history here. And then one thing I want to add too is I think it's fitting that he's still a Lion in that aspect, and
he's playing for Coach Campbell and the Lions. Yeah,
if there's any coach I think that would have an interest in Matthew Betts down south, that has to be Dan Campbell, right? You see that motor on Matthew Betts, that has to get Dan Campbell excited.
Yeah, and their general manager, Brad Holmes, done a great job building that team. So That's a guy who's clearly demonstrated he is great at evaluating talent, and I think I speak for all our fans, all our listeners, and you as well when we say thank you for the memories, best of luck, and we'll be following, just like we will Nathan Rourke, whether he's with New England or wherever he ends up. Who knows the situation with the Patriots, new coaching staff and everything, so we shall see, but best of luck to Matthew Betts, always a BC Lion in our hearts. Okay, no guest on this episode. You probably figured that out by now. We've gone down some of the key additions and players who have re-signed with the BC Lions, but as far as the roster breaks down, Nick, you want to talk about a couple of interesting positional battles. Start in the secondary, where, of course, it's a solid mix of veterans and some of these unknown youngsters coming in.
And there's going to be some questions that need to get answered come training camp and throughout the entire secondary, right? Obviously, the losses in the secondary so far this week have been Jalen Edwards-Cooper to Saskatchewan and Quincy Mauger to Toronto after his release. But right now, that probably puts Adrian Green at safety, right? He developed in his second year, got some starts toward the end of the season. But with TJ Lee still down, like we were talking about earlier, how does he fit in into this whatever halfback spot? Same with Seontae Evans. At the other cornerback spot across from Gary Peters, is it Sigurman Bagiogo or Patrice Rene as they enter year two with BC? Is it one of these newcomers that Rig Maiden and company bring in every offseason? Another guy worth mentioning, I think, is Charlie Ringland. Where is he going to fit in? This Charlie Ringland was a 2023 fifth-round draft pick who tore his ACL last season.
At the Combine, right?
But he'll presumably be ready for training camp this season, so the entire secondary, I think, there's so many intriguing storylines already. It's February, but I'm already looking forward to May just for the secondary.
And what we saw with guys like Bagiogo and Rene and Ringland, who you're going to see in camp for the first time, if these guys can make a difference on special teams, they will stick around.
Yeah, that's how Patrice Rene made his money.
Exactly. So we shall see. Just one of many intriguing battles. We've talked a bit about the running backs. Will Stanback is going to enter as the undisputed number one, but you're going to have to keep a couple more around, Nick. And I know it was a constant conversation, failure to establish a running game, but when called upon, Taquan Mizell made some good plays for this team. In Winnipeg, Western Final, big run early, then we fell behind and couldn't really use him as much that way. They love him as a blocker, very impressive. So you never know who can emerge as a number two or with a practice roster spot.
Yeah, and Taquan Mizell can also catch balls out of the backfield too, right? So another interesting storyline is how is the running back workload going to get managed this year, right? And Neil McAvoy is on record saying that he expects Taquan Mizell to be better in year two up in Canada. And then there's also, like we just said earlier, there's the newcomers. There's going to be more running backs brought in, and if they perform so well in training camp and preseason that you cannot simply cut them, then you have to keep them around. There could be in for a surprise come training camp. But so kind of bottom line is you don't lock things in February because training camp will tell how this position all breaks down.
We've talked about left guard already. Pearson and Neville both back. The Canadian draft will usually result in one or two offensive linemen coming in. But moving over to wide receiver, specifically the field side, Alexander Holland's back, multi-year extension. Lucky Whitehead not signed by the Lions or anyone as of this recording. But I think, these are business decisions more than anything, Nick, and anyone who comes onto this roster that wasn't here a year ago might be someone like a Jamarius Way who's back, Aiden Eberhardt, Ryan Rigmaiden. We encourage you to listen back a few weeks ago, gave us some names of some solid rookie Americans that are going to be in Kamloops, turning heads, earning a spot. Some intrigue here.
Yeah, in the last two seasons, I think I've learned, and you can probably echo this, that you go to training camp and probably the first week, you can already kind of tell, like, okay, these guys are catching everything in sight. Like, that's the most cliche statement ever for training camp. But yeah, you can just tell is what I'm getting at. By some guys separate themselves from the pack, and it's such a competitive position every training camp because there's 15 to 20 guys, and there's obviously the starters. You got Justin McInnes, Katoy, Hollins, Hatcher's obviously down, so that opens up another spot. But there's spots up for grabs, and it's going to be competitive as ever. And camp will tell, who Jordan Maximic and Jason Tucker like out of this group, and that's another one I'm really looking forward to in May.
Yeah, the offense and defensive battles, you just see how intense both sides of the football gets, and that's one of the great things about camp. Interior defensive line, we've talked about the rush end with Pete Robertson in, Sione, possibly some two solid bookends, but in the interior, we can talk about Stove Richardson being back. Josh Banks is here. Those guys, I think, made Woody Barron expendable. Thibaut Debaye is back. Francis Bemi, a draft pick from 2023 and a one-time guest on First and Now. We've even had some signings like Tipo Galei, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, and Jonah Tavai, a guy Ryan Rigmain very happy to have. Tavai, Galei, all those guys. Defensive line, we bring several of these guys, and watching those guys go through the motions, the one-on-ones, and when you get into the team play, that's always fun to see.
Exactly, and there's so many of them too. Another name that I know kind of made his way on the roster toward the end of the season last year was Marcus Moore, and I know the team thinks very highly of him. He's someone that I think he had a sack called back in the West semifinal, but he had a sack in preseason too last year, remember, and he's someone that you just notice is around the quarterback at all times. So that's another name to keep an eye on. Daniel Joseph is brought into this. So while you can probably assume that Josh Banks is going to lock down a starting spot, how that other defensive tackle spot shakes up and where Stove Richardson, like you said, fits in, Nathan Cherry, very interested to see come training camp.
Just under 3 months away from being back in Kamloops. Have to love that. Before we get into Go Forward or Punt, tell some of our listeners where you're going to be this weekend.
I'm off to Victoria.
Not Vegas.
I'm off to the Vegas of the West, Victoria. Is that right?
Sure.
No one's probably
sure. We'll go with that.
But yeah, I'm off to Victoria bright and early tomorrow morning for Play with the Pros, which is one of our coaching clinics that we do with players where it's sold out. 100 kids are going to be taught by Suk Chung, Javon Cotoy, Marcus Sales, Manny Ragumba, and Jarrell Broxton. We've got the West Shore Rebels helping out too. That's a junior football team out in Langford, Victoria area. And it's just always fun to do these events too. I've been going to them for a couple times. They like to spread them out throughout the entire province of BC, and they're out in Victoria right now. And then I saw that Marcus Sales and crew, tonight, if you're listening to this on Thursday evening and you're in Victoria, the Irish Times pub, Marcus Sales.
That sounds good.
They'll be down there. So if you want to go catch, I think Marcus said, come have a pint and let's talk about winning the Grey Cup. So that'd be a good conversation to have with Marcus Sales.
I'm tempted to come over there.
Get a ferry right now? It's 109. We can make it.
Have a Molson at the Irish pub there and talk football and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Marcus,
I got my best. Like we were saying, I'm dressed for it. So
yeah, you are. Yeah, you'd be the sharpest looking guy in there. But yeah, Marcus,
probably. Yeah.
Marcus and Manny are also paralleling that too with other school programs that are going on right now. I know they're doing their Energy Champions program, so they're visiting schools, telling them about the importance of environmental responsibility, and then I know those presentations are always a lot of fun too. They
very
the kids
good.
Engaged in all that too. So another benefit of having a guy like Marcus Sales back for another couple of years. He's one of the best players we have in the community. So, yeah, go join him tonight for a pint though when he's off his school presentations.
You're not gonna go back to that place we were at, the Sticky Wicket or whatever. You're not gonna go.
No, we're only there for the day.
Not gonna go play darts or anything.
I'm in Friday morning and out Friday night, so it's in and out for me.
Oh, that's no fun. They got to put you up for a night. Why not?
Yeah, well, Marcus Sales, he's going out tonight at least with the guys, so you got him. People would rather see him anyways.
You take the ferry or the helijet?
We're taking the ferry tomorrow.
Nice. Okay.
Bright and early.
Touchdown Pacific, baby. August 31st, Royal Athletic Park, Lions and Red Blacks. That is going to be a major highlight of this season. Okay. Go for it or punt. What do you got?
My go for it? We'll start out with?
Sure.
Let's go. I got a good one here. This might be a little controversial, but I thought, so I imagine if you're listening to this, you probably watched the Super Bowl. Moments after the Super Bowl ends, Travis Kelce, of course, being the showman that he is, starts belting out Elvis Presley's Viva Las Vegas. And I saw this post about it because I thought about this in the moment. I thought, that's not half bad. Like the tone he's doing, he's obviously screaming at the top of his lungs, but the tone he did it with when he was singing, I thought wasn't that bad. And then I see this video explaining how he actually had perfect pitch, which is he pretty much sang the song back in its exact pitch at the exact right moments. So there's a funny video breaking it down, but I thought it just made me laugh. Travis Kelce's obviously such a character, so I'm going for him and all his antics. I think they're funny, and I know people might get annoyed of him with his significant other now, but I would just get used to it as long as they keep winning Super Bowls too. What's
his significant other's name again? I forgot.
Starts with a T.
Yeah. I'll take your word. I turned it off like seconds after.
Yeah, sort of rubbing in.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Not
at all. Did you see this video though of him singing?
No.
Like
I've had people send me this. I had people yesterday in our group chat send me the Chiefs' reaction to the 49ers taking I'm done. I'm not watching it. Like,
yeah,
it's over. Like,
well, this is kind of funny and has nothing to do with football. That's kind of my argument for it.
And he is. In the past, I've seen him up on the podium, whether it's after the AFC title game or he does the fight for your right to party. Like, it
was just like that, but Viva Las Vegas, like several times, into it. Right on note and everything.
Okay,
just screaming though.
All right, I'll go for it first here. Extra hash brown when you're ordering your breakfast at Tim Hortons or anywhere else. Like, you get the combo with you get one, right? But you pay for it. Like, one's just not enough. I experienced this the other...
Oh, you pay for this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I say, it's just one hash brown doesn't do it. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. I thought
had this the other day. I was hungry. Okay, I'll pay whatever it is, and I'll get an extra one.
I thought you were saying like they gave you an extra one.
No. Always go for an extra one, even if it costs you $1.99 or whatever.
Okay.
Right?
I'll keep that in mind. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm with you. I like to put mine, if I get a breakfast sandwich, I like to put the hash brown in the sandwich.
That's good too. Yep.
A little crunch.
Yep. All right. Am I going to punt here first or are you going to punt here first?
You can punt first.
Okay. Sticking with the Super Bowl theme, I'm going to punt away. Watching the big games you're emotionally invested in around other people. I think might have explained this. It was also my dad's birthday on Sunday. So wasn't going to stay home. Like normally when the Niners are playing a big game, I'm home. Leave me alone. Don't bother me. I can turn up the volume as loud as I want. I can swear if I want to, but this got a little intense toward the end. My dad had one of his good buddies over who was kind of playing around, all in good fun. But when the result goes like the way it went, not fun. So hopefully the next time they're in one of these, who knows if they'll get the chance to go back next year. I don't know. Likely won't be on my dad's birthday again, at least. So,
one question for you: Are you happy they took the ball?
I don't think it mattered. Okay. That's not my biggest complaint with what they did.
That's fair.
I mean, because it's hard because I'd rather be in a position where you're having to protect the lead. Now, if they score a touchdown, it's a different story. If they score a touchdown, they go for 2 because they want to give the Chiefs the hardest path to come back. So, I have more of an issue with the execution on third down there. I mean, not coming away with a touchdown was. I'm not as critical as of that decision as other people are.
I am a little critical, I'm not going to lie. I think because you saw it right there with the Chiefs when they had to go for it on 4th and 1. There's this, if they get the ball first, they could punt them.
It was half a yard.
But they could punt.
Yeah.
It's the NFL. They could punt in that situation. So I think you saw it right there. It was your answer that KC used that extra down to their advantage, knowing what they had to get, right? And it ultimately worked out. It's scary giving Pat Mahomes a walk-off situation too.
It wasn't my biggest issue with how that
I agree with that too. I don't like it, but I don't say it was the ultimate deciding factor.
Third quarter, you get the interception, you're on Kansas City's 44 and you don't run the ball. That's inexcusable. I've defended Kyle Shanahan every year until now. I'm starting to see I'm butchering the saying here, but there's once is a pattern and what I'm getting at is there's been several double-digit leads now in these massive games that San Fran has ultimately came up short in. So it's becoming a pattern. Two Super Bowls and an NFC title game in Los Angeles where they were up 17-7.
So
I don't blame him for the Atlanta thing as much as because he wasn't the head coach.
Yeah,
I don't know why that I don't know why people put that on his record. Like, no one ever says, you're too young to remember this, or maybe you weren't even born yet. When the Houston Oilers blew the 35-3 playoff lead in Buffalo in the early... No one talks about who Houston's offensive coordinator was.
That's fair, yeah.
You don't, like... Yeah, but...
Well, Steve Wilkes was certainly the scapegoat for that, at least, but...
yeah, that was Bill Belichick. Let's get him out of retirement.
I saw Vrabel potentially, too.
I'd be on board with that.
Big names are out there, right?
I'd be on board with that.
But speaking of big names...
All right, no more Super Bowl talk.
Speaking of big names, I'm kind of punting this halftime show. We'll get your take on it. I just audibled to it. I just thought about it. But my whole take on this was, okay, I honestly thought Usher when I first saw it. I didn't realize that he was like the main performer in the halftime show. I just don't think Usher himself has that magnitude of like high quality hits. And
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when they announced it, people were kind of,
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
For Vegas, Super Bowl in Vegas, you got, in 2024, you got Usher.
I personally like him because a lot of his hits...
I like him, yeah.
A lot of his hits remind me of my youth, so to speak, right? And yeah, the show, I could take it or leave it. I don't know if I'd punt it.
My mic drop moment about Usher, though, why it wasn't that good, was that you yourself, and myself too, speaking for this, I thought the halftime show got good once Usher was not, it wasn't about Usher anymore. Once Little John came in, and once Ludacris came in. That's when I was like, okay, this is cool. But that's what they kind of done in the past too, right? With especially that West Coast one, where it was a collective group. But I just didn't love it. And there wasn't any. There was one meme, I guess, with him holding Alicia Keys that was memorable from it. But even the entire show, like, there wasn't anything that was too memorable from it. They were rollerblading, cool, but it's a Super Bowl. I mean, I expect an A+ every time.
And again, I wasn't the state of mind I was in. I was kind of just I kind of wanted to take a breather at halftime. Was outside helping grill the steaks. As mentioned, it was my dad's birthday, and so from what I saw of it, I was like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not the best, not the worst.
You won't remember it, unfortunately. But it's been a high bar recently. You know, Rihanna last year was great, obviously.
Dr. Dre a couple of years ago.
The West Coast one, like where they combined everybody, right?
That was brilliant.
It wasn't just Dr. Dre, though. It was like all five of them had their kind of equal stage time, whereas, I don't know, just didn't do it for me.
A bunch of years ago, they did Springsteen. He was awesome. That was Pittsburgh, Arizona, Super Bowl in Tampa.
I'm trying to think who stands out to me off the top of my head.
Beyonce was pretty good.
Did it, right?
Yeah, that was the wardrobe malfunction. Remember that?
No, not that one. No, like recently, if I'm not mistaken. This is bad.
Maroon 5 did it a few years ago.
Not too memorable. That was the Atlanta one, right? With all like Bun B and stuff like that came out. But yeah.
I saw Katy Perry in Arizona.
That was a great one.
10 years ago, 11 years ago, whenever that was. So, the Chili Peppers and Bruno Mars was a pretty good one, right? That was a good one.
Was it with the Chili Peppers or just Bruno Mars?
Bruno Mars, and then the Chili Peppers came out, I thought, right?
I can't remember either.
I know
Justin Timberlake was 2018, so that's
so
the one I'm talking
okay,
about.
So
I remember he did like why can't I think of the song? I'm not gonna sing it right now, but I like that show. That's all I remember from it.
Now it's coming back to me now. Maybe that was one of those where I just kind of just didn't pay attention, or I went to grab a snack or something.
Mirrors is the Justin Timberlake song I'm thinking of. I remember he did it there, and I loved it. So there we go.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. We encourage everyone to subscribe, rate, leave a review, and in the coming days, we shall see whatever else comes down the pipe. But bclions.com is our free agency hub. We're on YouTube. Check out Arrow Up the Rap if you've not seen the conclusion. Excellent work by Nick, Liam, and everybody involved. And stay out of trouble in Victoria.
Do my best. Like I said, we're in and out, so it'll be not hard to do.
Well, if you get this before Friday or before Thursday night, if you've already downloaded this and you're in Victoria, head to the
Irish Times pub.
That's it.
Marcus Sales will be there.
All right. First and now, the official BC Lions podcast.